Good afternoon. The animation is out. The Halloween snippet is out thanks to Pit TV. How it's going, partner? Thank you for the good work. It's awesome. We're coming out with another one. It's for the El Paso shootings. Cause I have a list of these done already. I just gotta get them in order. Okay. We're back with the ICE raids and how they're just taking these parents from the kids because they're immigrants. No really legal reason they're doing it. They're just doing it. And it's fucked up. So let's get it.
Immigration and Customs Enforcement today saying it's released nearly half of the 680 people they arrested during yesterday's immigration raids in Mississippi. Brian Cox, the Southern Region Communications Director for ICE, gave us the following statement, quote, "The 300 persons released from custody were released after being placed into removal proceedings before the federal immigration court." So they were released from custody, but they were not released without first being presented with a charging document that will require them to appear in court at a later date before a federal immigration judge. Now, normally I wouldn't read anything that annoying, that long, that verbose, that convoluted and obtuse, but we wanted you to see your government at work and how desperately Immigration and Customs Enforcement needs someone in communication who understands the importance of the English language and how to communicate. It's critically important for ICE, for Customs, Border Protection, and for Department of Homeland Security. Their job is too important to hide behind a piling like that. Joining me now, Byron York, Chief Political Correspondent for the Washington Examiner, Fox Business Contributor. Don't you laugh at me so early in the evening. It's great to see you, Byron. I mean, isn't it stunning? Here is ICE carrying out important interior enforcement, carrying out such important work, and they can't communicate what they're doing to the American people, and leaving the room, the void in that lapsed communication to AOC and her stalwart socialist anti-ICE colleagues.
Absolutely true, and I think one of the failings that you often see is you see reports of people being deported or being taken in, and don't know why. I mean, the government of the United States does not deport people for no reason.
Right.
And usually, if you look into a case, you'll find someone has a criminal history, has had full due process, has gone before a judge, and has been ordered removed from the country. And that's important.
I'm sure it's precisely what they were doing in these raids.
And that is important, and it's something that I should tell people. You know, one other thing though I will bring up though is, you know, we do have news from the border and from Mexico that fewer people are crossing the border illegally now than earlier this year. Now, we've all heard a lot of stories about how that goes down during the months of really, really high heat along the border, but there's also this belief that Mexico's policies of trying to stop people at its own border, its own southern border, have been actually working somewhat.
Absolutely.
And, you know, the whole story of the Trump administration and immigration is president gets elected promising to bring control to the border, to secure the border. He faces absolutely implacable opposition from Democrats on everything he does.
And his own party.
And many in his own party. And he tries to find ways. He approaches this roadblock and he tries to find ways around it. And having Mexico help stop the flow coming up from the Northern Triangle countries, having people wait for the adjudication of their asylum claims while they're in Mexico, those are creative solutions to things that he has had to come up with in the face of this roadblock.
Absolutely. And let's be very, very clear, because you're making, as always, very important points. This president threatens tariffs against Mexico because they have been absolutely irresponsible and callous in ignoring the need to secure our southern border and their own southern border and they have changed it under the government of President Lopez Obrador. And we're talking about 20,000 troops now at their northern border, moving there to act. Democrats won't act, but the government of Mexico is, and also putting 6,000 troops, more than 6,000 of their troops, their National Guard, at their southern border with Guatemala. These are major developments. You're quite right.
One additional fact is we have one of the reasons for this may be we have seen some public opinion polling from Mexico, and a lot of people in Mexico, we're talking about majorities, substantial majorities, do not like this idea of an uncontrolled flow of migrants across Mexico's southern border. Whether they're headed to the United States or not, they don't like this process.
I've got to ask you, we're running out of time, but you're the headline, the never Trump quandary, when you want Trump to lose but can't bear his Democratic opponents. Come to the president, independents and moderates.
Well, you know, this is a very, very small group, this group of never Trump Republicans and former Republicans. And frankly, the Democratic debates have been really hard on them. I mean, they have watched as these Democratic candidates...
They're hard on anyone who watches them.
They've watched as the candidates embrace Medicare for all, virtually open borders, sky-high taxes, free college, all of that stuff. And they look at that and they desperately want President Trump to be defeated next year. And they look at that and they say, none of these people can beat President Trump doing this. It's been a real tough time for them.
Yeah, until somebody figures out what country the Democratic Party that's become the party of hate, which country are they serving? They prefer illegal immigrants to citizens. They seem to have absolutely a mindless hatred for President Trump and all that he represents, that is, a great America, a prosperous America for all Americans. I think the Democratic Party finds itself completely boxed in and consigned to, is one of the wags famously copied, the dustbin of history. And what a nice group it should happen to.
The living in summer is it's different. Reese. Now the aftermath of the largest single state ICE raid in American history. Nearly 700 undocumented people, mostly from the reports we're getting as this is a developing story, mostly Latino, detained after these raids at 7 different food processing plants in Mississippi. Hundreds today have not all been released from custody, but there are these now devastating reports of how it works, of how this goes down when the government does this. Children effectively abandoned because their parents were swept up. The Jackson Free Press reporting it as thus, quote, children finished their first day of school with no parents to go home to tonight. Babies and toddlers remained at daycare with no guardian to pick them up. A child vainly searching a workplace parking lot for missing parents. Here's another report.
Fighting back tears, 11-year-old Magdalena Gomez Gregorio expressed to us her devastation being alone without her dad.
Gomez, please play your heart. Let my parents be.
Children left behind and families impacted by each raid stress their parents and friends are good people.
I need my dad for me. My dad didn't do nothing. He's not a criminal. He said that his mom was gone, that he's upset with Trump. He said he just wants his mom back. And they're both crying. They've been crying about all day since they got home from school.
If that's hard to watch, hard to take in, especially on a week like this, but on any day, that is just a couple of the stories that we've been sifting through. That's just a few of the people who, in the parlance of journalism, happen to go on camera. The wider impacts and devastation that we're dealing with, when you think about what we're reporting, the largest single state ICE raid, we're still just getting these stories and the local reporters and the local print journalists. So that's part of what the Trump administration is doing right now. Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos.